All right, for our final talk before lunch, please welcome to the stage Shruti to talk about external contributions.
Hey everyone, my name is Shruti. I work on the Chrome team, and I'm going to be talking about external contributions to Chromium. So first, I obviously want to start by saying Chromium, as an open source project, we love contributions. We love external contributions, non-Googler contributions for so many reasons. We love sharing the joy of this project, this open source project that has an impact on billions of users. And I think it's something that I tend to forget on a daily basis, but that's awesome. But more importantly, I think I strongly believe that Chromium and the web platform benefits from a diverse group of perspectives, diverse ideas, but also diverse areas of investment. And so I want to show this snapshot view. Huge disclaimer here. This is from a moment in time. It's purely based on number of CLs, so it's not representative of the value of contributions or the value of the contributors. But as you can see, the external contributions or the non-Googler contributions to Chromium is on the downward trend. And this could be for many reasons. This turned out a little spookier than I expected, but it is almost Halloween. So we've heard some feedback from all of you as to why this might be. Some of it I can guess. It's the economy is changing. We're seeing the same trends as so many of you: reduced resources, reprioritizing resources into things that are absolutely necessary. All of these things, right? We're seeing layoffs. And we've also heard a few pieces of feedback from all of you as to what could help when you want to contribute more to Chromium, but you're seeing some kind of friction. So the point of this is not to investigate the why, so I don't want to overemphasize on it. There's probably some reasons that you all would like to share with us, some that you don't. But I want us to focus on the actionable pieces of feedback. What can we do better? What can Google do better to make sure you all can contribute where you want to contribute? And what can all of you do better? We are a community, and I think we should provide actionable feedback to each other as well. So my first idea was we all have all of you in the room right here. So we could just lock the doors, throw up like a huge dashboard in the back, lights flashing, and all of you run maybe 5 CLs before you leave. By the end of the day, I think the trends are going to start coming back up. Nobody liked my idea, so we're going to move to plan B and just talk. The way my talk is going to be structured is I'm going to talk for a little bit based on things I've heard from all of you. And then I'm going to stop talking, and I hope all of you can share things that we can do better. This talk is recorded, but at the end of it, or by the end of today, if you feel like there's bits and pieces that you don't want to be publicly shared, my talk will still be recorded and shared on the public channel. If you want the discussion cut out, just email the organizing committee. They'll take care of it. So I want to make sure that all of us can share and talk openly here today. A few things we've heard. Code review latency. There's a lot of Googlers in the room. Everybody knows this wasn't some kind of universal feedback. These are anecdotes I hear. Our teams take code reviews very seriously, and everybody wants to review code as soon as possible, whether it's from a Googler or not. But every once in a while, we have a huge milestone. We're trying to land a feature at the same time as you are, and all of the code reviewers are Googlers. They're all on the same team, and they're all busy. So it happens. There's reasons for it, but you still feel the pinch. So what can we do? If you have ideas on where you want to contribute, would it be helpful if we tell you where we would enthusiastically welcome contributions? We could pair you up with a Googler team that would love to have your contributions in that space. They can mentor, they can code review your code quicker, and they can help you. They can kind of help you navigate a launch process, which is not super simple. So we can help out there. I mentioned Google is a majority contributor to Chromium. So a lot of our reviewers are Googlers too. So that's a bit of a bottleneck. What can we do to train more external reviewers? Is that something that you all would be interested in? Path to code ownership. I hear this a lot from newer contributors. Code ownership is obviously a badge of honor, but it can seem like Chromium is huge and overwhelming, and it's unclear where to start. We have first good bug lists and things like that. But if you do want to own code, you want to become a code owner, would it help if we shared a list of unmaintained code directories that we don't have the resources to own, and we can help you get to code ownership quicker? Lack of in-person meetups. I feel this so much. Not having BlinkOn in person for a few years, I feel very disconnected. I feel like I don't know what's on everybody's minds. And I'm only half joking about more BlinkOns. Johnny's already giving me the side eye, but can we do something else? Like, would it make sense for us to meet in smaller groups, maybe based on specific topics, so we can have a little bit more of that cross-pollination? I think in-person meetings are where we come up with ideas of, hey, this would be a great one to collaborate on. And it's really hard to set out that meeting with just that right person with this on the agenda. And maybe that's what's making us struggle a bit here as well. And on similar lines, disconnect. I heard from many of you today that we meet in pockets, like one engineering team meets another engineering team that's from another organization. But we don't have an opportunity to talk about the problems that maybe all of us are thinking about. Maybe there are many of you in this room who are just as concerned about this and want to talk more about these topics, but we're just not connected. We don't know who to talk to. So would it help if we had more ongoing channels? Like if there's enough interest on this topic, I could create a working group or a task force, and we could meet on a regular basis and talk about how do we improve the diversity of contributions to Chromium. It's not just about more contributions, but just not concentrated in one space or in one kind of interest. I think all these ideas were okay. They probably have merit. Maybe you all will yell at me and say, no, they're all terrible, but they're all somewhat incremental. I don't think they're all kind of trying to fix an assumed problem for today. And then we'll probably have the same problem in a couple of years. So one thing that I've been spending a lot of time thinking about is how do we make sustainable changes that would bring some energy and momentum into the ecosystem, into building browser engines in a way that it's not concentrated in one place or another. I think there's a lot of new ideas, fantastic ideas, diverse ideas out there. I also think there are skills to build things that we want to be built. What can we be doing? So I've been spending some time thinking about this more on like, not today, but what about a year from now? What about 2 years from now? And what can we be doing? And so I want to wrap up my portion of this and then let all of you talk with my personal favorite idea. Would it make sense to start a Chromium Open Collective Fund? I know from my perspective, a lot of our full-time engineers are getting pulled based on our roadmap in so many different directions. There are new priorities every day. The landscape is changing, the industry is changing, the economy is changing, and it's really hard to contribute to the commons. But if we don't do that today, we're going to be in a worse spot tomorrow. So would it make sense for all of us to collectively pool our piggy bank dollars into a fund and redirect those where there is a skill set, there are ideas, but also help pay for those ideas and create new opportunities to bring back some energy into the ecosystem? If you all think this is a good idea, I'm also happy to chat later. I'm happy to chat. I'm going to be here for the next few hours. But do let me know if this is something that's interesting to folks. I would love to create some space for us to talk about this on an ongoing basis, so we don't have to wait till the next BlinkOn to connect on this again. So with that, I'd love to open up to questions, feedback, thoughts.
Here first, you say. All right, we've got 2 in the audience, and then we'll go to remote. 1 moment.
Hey, thank you. I was wondering, earlier in these slides, we saw a graph with all the commits from all the companies, the partners, and whatever. And I was wondering, is there a publicly available place where we can see all these numbers all the time and track these numbers? Because it's a bit hard to increase these numbers and improve these numbers if we cannot just see them often.
Yeah, that's a great question. The data is all publicly available. It's not in the graph format or in a dashboard format, but that's definitely something that we can work on. I have a very, scratchy script that I use to put that together, but I can clean it up and share it with everyone.
And that last comment was from Benjamin Beaudry. All right, next question from the audience.
Yeah, I'm Sebastian Marchand. So I've been to many BlinkOn, and it feels like there's always a lot of people who come to BlinkOn to talk about Chromium, not Blink. So it feels like it would be really nice to have a forum. I don't know it might be a Chromium on. I don't know what to call it, but just to be more general, to talk about Chromium in general, not just Blink. So this is one of my observations. It's why I'm here. I don't touch Blink so much, but I care about it and I care about Chromium in general. So yeah.
I think that's a fantastic question. We had this discussion maybe a year back. Should we rename BlinkOn? Because it's not just Blink. And the boundaries are a little bit unclear. The only reason we decided not to at that point is because BlinkOn kind of has this identity of its own and people hopefully love it. But yes, it's a great point. And I think we talk about it a lot internally as well, as like, what is Blink and what is Chromium and what is Chrome? And the boundaries kind of get mixed up. But we'll take that feedback. It's good to know that other people feel this way as well. We just weren't sure about renaming BlinkOn. Honestly, that was the only thing.
All right, Andy on remote.
Yeah, hi, I'm Andy. I work at Microsoft. I work on Edge. Has there been any thought around, like, before even code contribution, there's a handful of things around CR bug and other issues where there's, you'll find an issue, you open it, maybe you're interested in it, and you see something like, Google only doc or some Google links that like external folks can't access. And it's like, oh, I'm interested in this, I want to learn more, but there's that barrier of that lockdown to Google, and you need to find someone on, Slack or ping someone on the issue. It's just kind of an overall pain, and there's no consistency around that. Is there any thought around that? Like just the pre-contribution step of things, making it a little bit more, facilitating it a little bit easier there.
Yeah, that's a good question. In most cases, we do try to, if something gets locked by default, just to protect privacy and security, our team members will typically go back and open it up if it was incorrectly locked down. Of course, there will be some documents in there. There's parts of Chromium that are confidential, and so there may be confidential docs in there. But if there's something you're interested in and you feel like this is wrong, just comment on the bug itself. That might be a simpler way to at least say, I'm interested in this, I'd love to help. And that way, if it seems like it was incorrectly locked down, somebody will loop you in. I understand that can be a bit of a pain point sometimes.
Another comment from the audience.
Hey, I'm Kurt from Microsoft. Had kind of 3 points to share. First is I wanted to agree with one of your suggestions of like having regular collaborations with Chromium contributors has been just instrumental. I know like Ian Kilpatrick on layout, we have a weekly sync with him, and that like really has been super, super helpful for breaking down changes and, prioritizing things. And I know other folks meet with the accessibility team with Aaron Leventhal and Nectarios, and that's just been so helpful for getting contributions up. So would definitely encourage other folks who want to get their contributions up. Like that is a really viable strategy, and they've been really generous with their time. Second point is kind of along those lines, but not really, is I think in Chromium, like the coding style that seems to be most effective is lots of small check-ins. But I think other folks who are new to that, like they want to, do a feature as one commits, and that's kind of not super obvious. So I don't know if that's maybe some feedback of like, when we get a new person, they'll try to do one feature and one big commits, and that on your graph would show up as one. But if you were to talk to a Googler, they'd say, oh, break this up into 5 pieces. And so that would get 5 commits instead of 1. I don't know if that's another, it's really hard to quantify, but I don't know if that's another piece as to why, external folks don't have that kind of perspective. And then a third piece that's kind of the elephant in the room is like us downstream contributors, kind of have to keep up with this fast pace of Chromium. And we've seen several presentations here on, downstream kind of keeping things in sync. I don't know if that's another, I do think that's kind of related because we're all using engineering resources to keep up with all these changes in Chromium. And if we did have, and it also seems very ad hoc, right? Everyone's coming up with their own solutions. So, something like that might also help all of us be able to contribute more upstream as well.
Yeah, the point you had, the first one you mentioned was about more in-person meetups. You mentioned Ian Kilpatrick. I've spent some time brainstorming this with him because I was hoping at BlinkOn we could be like, we solved this problem. But it's really hard to do in that I think there are connectors, like super connectors in the community who can talk to two people and connect them and say, you're interested in this, you're interested in this, talk to each other, and out comes like an area of collaboration. I'd love to hear more ideas on how to create those venues, plus one that we need more of them. I'm struggling a little bit in terms of how to create them so it's not one large BlinkOn like every month, which obviously I don't think all of you would want to fly out for either. So I definitely love more ideas there. Your second thing was about the size of check-ins. It's something we have talked about too, and I agree that the data is not perfect. Either way, the data wouldn't be perfect. We also don't want to overemphasize on lines of code because there's other issues with that. But maybe we should have more metrics and create more of an overall picture versus just lean on this, which is why I want to show the trend, but I also don't want to overemphasize on just the numbers.
We've got one more from the physical audience, and then we'll go to virtual. One moment.
Hi, this is Andrea Botella from Igalia. Well, I didn't realize that some people were having, I don't know, regular meetings with the Uncle Patrick. But I did not know that was a thing, and at some point, that some extent, that maybe should be more advertised that you can do that. There's also the fact, if you're not an expert, you don't want to take too much of an expert's time, and so there's a bit of that in figuring out how much to bug some of the experts. But I also wanted to mention external contributors who are not who have no affiliation. I was in that boat 2 years ago before I joined Igalia, and it's a good entry point to this industry, but you need a lot of investment if you don't have access to Goma, if you are trying to do something but you don't have any funding. And I heard about some grant for that there was some time ago about having some proposal with funding from Google, and I wonder if the open fund that you mentioned could be connected to that, and if that could work together.
That's a fantastic idea. Absolutely. I think the Open Collective Fund would fund ideas like that. Doesn't have to be affiliated to any organization. And personally, I think it's better if the funds go also towards not big organizations, but individual contributors without affiliations, like you mentioned, because you're absolutely right. That's a fantastic path into the industry. And one of the goals of a fund like that would be to lower the barrier to entry. So that is a great idea. In terms of meetings, we have this list on chromium.org about technical discussion forums. And typically within the team, we ask folks if they're having weekly meetings to publish them on that mailing list. So if you're interested in accessibility, for instance, then I highly recommend that you go and subscribe to that mailing list on Chromium. It doesn't always happen. It's just that sometimes people miss it. But if there is activity on a mailing list, then the Googlers also get better about announcing meetings that happen on those lists. So I'll share that. I'll find a way to share that out later with all of you. Take a look at that. And if for whatever topics you're interested in, please go subscribe to those mailing lists. And I'll make sure internally as well, I'll send out guidance to make sure people are publishing these meetings that happen, at least on the ones that happen on a weekly or regular basis.
All right, Stephen on virtual.
Hi, I probably have a unique perspective on this, given that I've made the transition from inside to outside recently. a few things. One is that questions about tooling are hard to find the right person to answer, to ask the question of and answer. So that's one issue that could be addressed. Another significant factor is sort of, and I was aware of this while at Google and outside, it's also quite, it's more of a problem, which is things like crash reports and performance-related regressions and things like that. The sort of the overhead of dealing with that is significant when you can't actually see the crash reports and you can't see the the Finch trial results and things like that. Philosophically, it's interesting that I was trusted to see that 6 months ago, and now I'm not trusted to see it, which is interesting. And so that, I guess, any possibility of a pathway for moving that data out of Google services and into Chromium services, or otherwise making it possible to gain access to some of that information with the same protections. But that would require the foundation, I believe. I think so. Those are, I think, the two biggest things that I've noticed. But yeah, I have really noticed that since leaving.
Thanks. Good to see you, Stephen. The point about where to ask questions, I think, which two of you raised today, that's a good one. We do have Slack channels, but we could do a better job of organizing them. Somebody was just telling me today that there's, I think, a web platform Slack channel, and a lot of questions come there, which could be redirected to Chromium. So I think we could do a better job of managing and organizing some of these channels so that you can get to the right place where the right folks are and they can answer the questions. So I'll take that as feedback and I'll try to come up with a proposal.
Is this a response, Stephen?
Yeah, I was just going to say that there is the Slack channel for like bugs closed to non-Googlers, where you can ask about what's in a bug that you can't see. Maybe a channel that was like, tell me who to ask channel, because when you're inside Google, it's much easier to find people to ask because you can look at Teams pages and stuff. And so help me find the right person might be a really good Slack channel.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you.
All right, another question from the audience.
This is Rob Veza. I will say, and recognizing that this is probably above my pay grade, I appreciate the idea of some kind of a fund, particularly because I recognize, I think governance isn't free, and if the shoe were on the other foot, I don't really want my engineers spending a ton of time. I don't want my team spending a ton of time doing governance when they could be building features. Recognizing that there's benefit that comes from having the open source engagement as well, but I also know that my team has an expertise on doing X, Y, and Z, and I don't necessarily want to be spending time doing other things than those three things, right? And so I can appreciate that. On the flip side, I also look at how this has worked out for other open source projects. One that comes to mind is Webpack, and it's like this has kind of grown into I don't want to just pick on Webpack. It's just the one that I think I'm most familiar with from colleagues who have worked on it. It's kind of it's a challenging project to work in now. I guess you could say the same thing about Chromium, and we've all worked on it for years. But I don't know. It's how do you handle if we did decide to go with this funded route where there's this I guess this other organization responsible for governance, then what vision would you have for making that work in an effective way?
Yeah, I can share some of my thoughts about this. I see the collective fund as being a very small part of our investment into Chromium. So as Google, we're not looking to reduce our investment either into Chromium or into the web platform. The things that we care about, we're still going to make happen. Are we looking to share the burden of Chromium Commons, maintaining the open source code base? Absolutely, I do think so. And I think of the Open Collective Fund as being a very small part of it. We currently already have contracts with Igalia, for instance, and a few other organizations to do work towards the commons, the things that we don't have the time or the resources to do, and they do a fantastic job of this. So my vision is not to transfer the governance of Chromium to another organization. It is basically to help fund some of these initiatives, which can flow into Chromium, help maintain the commons, help make the commons better through shared research. And we can lean on existing programs. I don't think it needs to be very heavyweight. We have the Interop program. We have a few other programs like that that are shared between different browsers and the industry that tell us what developers care about. So it doesn't have to be what Google cares about or what Microsoft cares about only. It can be things that are good for the web. But yes, I think it would be a very small part of our investment into Chromium.
Okay, we have another comment from the audience.
Hi. Sometimes security and privacy reviews take a long time, and that delays the intent to ship or even sometimes prototype process. And when your partners sign up to use this API and you ship the API after 3 years, they don't even have resources to even implement that API anymore, and they just seems not interested anymore, right? So my question to you is there any way we can get access to the privacy and security folks much earlier in the process, and not just when we publish intent to prototype or intent to ship? So that was my first part of the question. Second is tag review, like other external reviews, considered a major blocker in the intent to ship process? If so, how can we make sure that the tag other external reviews go smoothly and they can be also engaged earlier in the process and not when we send intent to ship? Because most of the time when we send intent to ship, our partners expect us to ship it because we get approvals from we get consensus on the API structure and everything, and so they are ready to use that. Yeah, I see Alex hand is up. And yeah, they are ready to use the API in their product. But if we take a couple of years, I'm not exaggerating. It actually happened for a feature like web custom format, though most of the thing, it wasn't a Chromium process bottleneck. It's just to get approval from other browser vendors or get consensus on the web API surface. But yeah, I would privacy and security reviews. I think I personally have seen a lot of delay in the process, so it would be helpful to get a direct meeting, maybe, so we can talk to them directly and address their concerns and not have to go through our Google partners, because I know they're also busy in their work, and yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I hear that. Alex, did you want to respond to that? Okay.
Hey, Anupam, thanks for bringing up. I know the processes are conjoined, right? We have our Blink launch process. We have the Chromium processes for ensuring quality, security, stability, conformance with the rest of the code base's goals and governance. And we have the public web platform standards-oriented parts of our process, which are kind of hived off into the Blink launch process. And so I'm only going to respond to that aspect of it. Questions about accelerating security and privacy reviews and providing more visibility. I think maybe you can talk to that, Shruti. But we explicitly designed the Blink launch process to ensure that we are not blocked by other browser vendors or by standards consensus. It is not a feature of our process for you to wait for someone else to tell you that a feature that you've validated with end developers is the right one. The way that you figure that out is by talking to end developers, right? And we will take your collateral as API owners for that, and we will evaluate it. And we will ask you to do things like go ask the tag for guidance and steering early on in order to help you get to a better place with your eventual design. But if you've got confidence that it's the right thing to ship and that it meets the needs of our developers and our end users in reverse order, then there is nothing in our process that is in your way. Only your confidence to do it. And so if you lack that confidence, or you're curious, or you would like help to do that, please reach out to us as API owners. It is our job to help steer you through this, not just to tell you no, or to tell you to tick some other box. And hopefully a multi-year delay is not in your future. You should feel free to time out before that, by the way. I don't know what your manager's going to think about me saying that, but never suffer in silence, and never like wait to ship something for multiple years because you're pining for some other browser vendor to show up and save you. That's not how it works.
Thank you, Alex. And Johnny, did you want to take the launch?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was going to add one thing, which somewhat recently, I forget the timing now, but we announced that we moved a number of those security, privacy, et cetera, approval gates, we call them now, into the Chrome status tool. That all that this used to happen internally within Google before. So that's a new thing. Nazca, who's in the back of the room here, can yell at me if I'm wrong, but the security team, for instance, very much wants to be involved early, right? So I'd say there's nothing in the tool that forces you to start those things early, but the sooner you start them, the sooner you'll get answer, and the less you'll be blocked. So we would very much encourage folks to, you don't have to create the feature entry before you necessarily get close to actually launching or at least experimenting. But there's nothing wrong with starting it early and starting those processes early. So please do. We can always delete a feature entry if we realize we're not going to ship something, right? So that's not hard.
Yeah, I wanted to say the same thing. Johnny and his team have been working really hard on improving the launch process. We do understand it is complicated because we have two processes. And like Alex mentioned, you all are also working on getting consensus with the developer community and other browsers and all of these things. So we're trying to make it easier. We're trying to get this on the tool. So again, it's simpler for you to follow up and maintain and track versus looking at the mailing list. So all of this work is happening because of feedback like yours. So please keep doing that. Are we over time? We're okay? Thank you all. Oh, there's one last question.
Hey, Sam Fortner from Microsoft. So I actually I'm glad you brought up the launch process because we gave some feedback about that a while ago and we've seen the improvements and we really appreciate it. So I want to say thank you for that. I was curious if we can get a little more clarity on where things like, I think it's architecture dev and embedder dev and where those sort of fit into what you should expect from Chromium. In terms of when upstream does like large scale refactors and that sort of stuff that can end up catching some downstream user like by surprise, shall we say. And I know some of that stuff like MP-Arch and some of the like Miracle Pointer and Raw Pointer rewrites and stuff like that have been talked about there. So that's been great. But I'm not sure if it's consistent, I guess is a good way to put it. And then the other thing that I am curious about is how do we differentiate between Chromium UX review and Chrome UX review? And is there any real way to do that today? Thanks.
So the second two questions, I think I'll take them offline. The first one you mentioned was all the launch review feedback. We have been getting it from you all and from so many others for a couple of years. We've done a few rounds of changing the process and kind of taking another look. Chris Wilson's here. I think he did one of the rounds of revisiting the Blink launch process. And I think there's lots more improvements to come. But getting everything into Chrome status, I agree, it's a great first step. In terms of what to expect and like some specific cases, I'll take that offline. I'm sure we can do a better job in terms of consistency of where these go, because every once in a while we have these internal discussions where it's like, I want to announce this, but where should it go? Should it go on Chromium Dev or Blink Dev? Is this too broad? Is this too narrow? And like I mentioned, we have this long list of technical discussion groups that people also feel like that's a little bit better for kind of low latency, technical, low level discussions. So it is a challenge. I agree that it can be a little bit confusing, especially if you're trying to follow where all of these different channels, mailing lists, Slack, etc. And we're trying to do a better job of it. And I take that feedback. I'm going to work on how we organize all of these channels better so we know where to go with questions, and hopefully you find the right people in that room to answer them. Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. And I hope I see you all later. Let's continue the discussion.